This conference will now be recorded.
Do we have a quorum?
All right, I've got 1:30, so I'll call the February 17th meeting of the Airport Advisory Commission to order. We don't need a call roll. We've got everybody here except for Dr. Powell. I just texted him to ask if he was planning to come, and I don't have a response yet. I'll let you know what I got. So, item number 3, the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Espiritu to approve the agenda as written,
I'll second it.
and a second by Commissioner McDonald. Any discussion or debate on the agenda? Hearing none, we'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor of the agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Yeah. No, don't confuse me. Don't do that.
We know the can't vote both ways. Sorry.
Okay, can't have a vote. All right, on to number item 4, minutes from the December meeting.
I'll move to adopt them as presented.
I
Second.
have a motion by Commissioner Call to approve the minutes as. Table these. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Espiritu. Any discussion on the minutes from December 16th? Hearing none, I'll ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, passes 4-0. Item number 5. Mr. Stark.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Next slide, please. And next. So we'll start with air service because Jeff's got to get on a plane here in a few. This is really short. Really all I'm putting up there for my side of it is the schedule for the rest of February. And it would be very complicated to try and put it all up there, but to keep it short, that's what we've got generally. The 2 flights coming and going from Dallas and the 1 to Phoenix. There are some weird anomalies in there, like a flight coming in from Dallas on a Tuesday night, spending the night, going back out in the morning, and that's all there is for those 2 days for Dallas. We've seen that already a little bit, and I say Tuesday, it may not be Tuesday, it may be a Saturday, but there's a few of those strange ones in there, and then there's also the ones that are just 1 in, 1 out on particular days for both Dallas and Phoenix. So with that said, all of that weirdness is derived by the crew shortages and everything else that's been driving our reduced schedule that we've had in the past. And with that, I have asked Jeff Hartz to join us. I know he's on the phone listening and waiting for the introduction to talk about the fourth quarter performance and what we can look at going forward. So Jeff,
Before, if I may ask,
sure, go ahead.
are we in danger of losing flights or because of the staffing issues with American?
When we let Jeff.
That would be a good question for Jeff. I think short answer is no, but I would let Jeff answer. Fill that in.
Yeah,
To you, Jeff.
appreciate it. Hey, good morning or afternoon, guys. Everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, so, to answer that first question before we kind of talk about everything else, are we imminently at risk? No, but we are absolutely at risk, just like every other market is in general, of being impacted by this. We are essentially, for the foreseeable future, this spring and probably into the summer, going to have just 2 trips to Dallas and 1 trip to Phoenix. Perfectly honest, that's probably, I would say, with air quotes, the best case scenario. The airlines are essentially finding, and especially American and United, that on a daily basis that they are having less hours of pilots available at the regionals than what they thought they had even the day before. And it is definitely becoming a very, very significant problem that is not likely to change and a positive anytime in the near future. This is likely going to be at least a 2022 problem. And a lot of the airlines in SkyWest are essentially saying it's probably going to be a 2023 problem as well. Essentially what is going on is every major airline is hiring on the tune of 50 to 100 pilots a month. The only place that they can come from essentially are the regionals. And when you start essentially vacuum cleaning out 400 to 500 pilots a month out of the regional pool, you're creating a significant shortage. The biggest shortage right now for the airlines, for the regionals, is a mismatch in availability of crews. You essentially are having the captains being hired out of all the regionals, which is creating a training problem for the regionals, as you have to try to get, first officers trained into the captain spot, and then still then backfill the first officers with new hires, which is creating a bigger bubble than what they've had previously. SkyWest spent a lot of their last quarter investor call a couple of weeks ago talking about this phenomena that has essentially created a mismatch of their attrition from typically being, 50-50 or even 75-25 captain to first officer, first officer to captain, to almost everything being hired out right now, and they're losing as captain, which is creating this big problem of not having enough captains on the payroll to keep flying what they want to fly. SkyWest has essentially been saying that they are cutting as much as they can to the bone on their prorate, which then means that they are also not able to fly even their capacity purchase contracts. And they are obviously a big deal for us even because of the fact that they are the one airline that flies for every single major carrier out there. And so as SkyWest has problems, everybody has problems. And from what I understand, they're actually doing better than a lot of the regionals. So right now, when you look out in the future, for May coming up in 2022, American overall is down about 10% in seats compared to 2019 as a system. And it's really kind of a tale of two worlds. If you're a bigger market, you're relatively flat, in a lot of cases up. There's a lot of markets like Roswell that are down compared to 2019 in May versus the same period, in that roughly 30% range. We're down in seats 27% versus 2019 when you look at this coming May versus May of 2019. Comparatively for other ones in the American system, Santa Fe is down about 30%. Yuma is down about 30%. Flagstaff's down about 30%. Other ones in the Western region, Ontario's down about 33%. So again, we've got a lot of these sized markets that are definitely suffering. And I won't sugarcoat, this is not something that's going to get fixed at all in the next 6 months. The airlines are saying at best cases next year. And even then, we're starting to hear them start to even roll that back, saying hopefully end of next year.
Okay. Gee. Any other good news?
I mean, on the positive, we've held Phoenix for May. I think because of that, I think we're likely going to see Phoenix hold through the summer, which frankly, honestly, I would view as a win in the positive that Americans keeping it in there. We are, markets are losing service. Markets are losing a lot of service right now. And the fact that we just lost to one Dallas is honestly a positive. But I would say at this point, there's probably not a lot of hope that we'll get that third trip back in the near term, being, early summer, midsummer timeframe for Dallas. I think it's probably, for lack of a better term, our new normal for the foreseeable future until the crew situation improves on this. And obviously the airlines are starting to get a little concerned because they see a very strong uptick in demand for this summer across the board. And, they are fighting an uphill battle on the pilots at this point.
What are they doing to try and address the pilot shortage? Anything creative or different?
There's not a lot to be done. I mean, part of the problem is the generic 1,500-hour ATP, or the ATP requirement for 121 carriers. And obviously, there's a couple of different ways to get there. 1,000 hours if you're a college graduate with the right to free program, or 1,500 hours for everybody else. That is the sticking point. It essentially means there's only a finite number that can be, dumped into the system because you have to get to those minimum hours. And from what I understand, there hasn't been a lot of talk. There's been some grumblings and rumblings at RAA, the Regional Airline Association. I've had some conversations with AAAE about this as well. But at this point, there has not been any initial appetite for it. I know I talked to Scott last week, and it's something that I was going to bring up on here, is there's a unique position right now that right now there is a lot more hurt going around than there had been in 2018, 2019 timeframe when people talked about the pilot shortage. And I think right now, if there's ever been an appetite to try to get a little bit of relaxation in that ATP requirement, now would be the time to try to strike, because that it's broad-based right now. Before, these pilot shortages really affected the smaller 121 carriers and a couple of the regional airlines. At this point, it's affecting every single regional airline and express operator.
Is there a different component for simulator on these total hours? Was that changed?
There is a small component of it. It's negligible, perfectly honest. I know that they added a piece to it. I don't remember the exact amount. It was 50 or 100 hours or something like that. So in the grand scheme of your 1,500 hours, it's negligible.
Okay. You guys?
Jeff, we got your conference coming up in March. You mind talking about that just a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm actually at a air service conference that typically has a little bit larger twinge right now called Routes. So I've had a bunch of meetings with them. And, with all the doom and gloom, the good news is there's still a relative optimism at the airlines that next year, hopefully things get better. And they've got a giant list of stuff that they want to do. I mean, so the airlines still want to regrow. United wants to be able to add markets like Roswell. They are just, hamstrung. They were hoping by the end of this year. Now we're essentially being told by the likes of United that, hey, it's hopeful next year at best case. So going into our conference, as our conference has been, and some of you guys are aware you've been, it's speed dating. It's 20-minute meetings with a bunch of different airlines to be able to get an update of where things are at on their end, where things are at on our end. We'll have updates to the presentation and updates to some of the data going into it from Roswell's standpoint on this is where we're at, essentially putting our best foot forward with service, talking with American again, obviously continuing the conversations with United and SkyWest, hopefully some low-cost carriers like an Allegiant, to just be able to say that this is where Roswell is, this is where we're at, this is why we're a good opportunity as availability comes about. But yeah, I definitely think, from our standpoint, 22 is essentially a write-off. We're talking at this point, as we talk to the airlines, it is really a 23 type of conversation, which, they're starting to think about. They're finalizing summer, they're getting into the fall schedules. They will be starting to look at 23 here over the next couple of months on a long-term planning horizon. So the good news is it's a good timing to have these conversations with those airlines talking about why Roswell and why the opportunity. So at this point for our conference, we do have, I think, 11 or 12 different airlines. Again, American, Delta, United, Southwest, SkyWest, Allegiant, Alaska, Breeze, JetBlue, Sun Country, Spirit, and then possibly Frontier. We're still waiting to hear back on that one. So again, broad ranging. We'll be able to get some good updates and hopefully some good face-to-face meetings with them to get a better feel for where we fit into their plan. But it's definitely, we're going to hear, and you're going to hear firsthand again, it's a pilot problem through and through right now.
We just need to stay the course, and as Jeff mentioned, and
I think
and
so.
point three, I was concerned about the pilot shortage, how it's going to impact us conference, but I think we're okay. We still need to have that presence.
Mhm.
And so, Jeff, thank you for that. We're going to have the brochures and stuff, so we can,
Oh, yeah. We'll
okay,
have all that.
all right, so we'll have all that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll have some updated data as well. We'll have the 2021 visitation data that will be updated prior to the conference. That'll be included in there. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still the business as usual from our standpoint on an air service development. Obviously, when we were looking at this last year and having conversations, we were really hoping that end of 22 was going to be more of a positive. We already knew the beginning of 22 was going to have a lot of challenges. At this point, the airlines are essentially saying, look, we're just essentially planning on 23 at this point for most of our discussions right now. So we're going to go into this essentially pitching and explaining why Roswell's recovered, why Roswell needs, Denver service and why it fits into it. We've got, the SCASD in our back pocket that will be, obviously pitching with them on it. So, in the grand scheme, we are positioned well. It's just a matter of, it's not a Roswell thing. It's not a New Mexico thing. It's not a Southwest U.S. thing. It is literally the entire country is getting hammered on a regional world on pilots. And we just don't know how bad it's going to be. And that's probably the thing the airlines are most concerned on is they hope that we find a bottom out by now so that, by the summer, things would start improving. They haven't found the bottom yet. And I think that's why the airlines are starting to get a little more antsy and a little more concerned is typically we find a bottom at some point and we haven't found it yet.
Guys, anybody else? All right, a couple quick thoughts, Jeff. So demand is still there. Am I correct in understanding demand appears to be healthy? It's just crew shortages that are the limiting factor. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there was a lot of weakness in January and December because of Omicron. We're seeing a lot of upturn at the end of February into March, and the airlines have a lot of high hopes for this summer to be essentially an absolute gangbuster summer on demand from both a business and a leisure standpoint. So yes, from everything I've seen from a Roswell standpoint and an industry standpoint, there's no demand problem in the short term outside of January was just bad everywhere because of an Omicron resurgence.
Okay. Any talk, going back to the pilot shortage, any discussion of raising the age limit for pilots?
There has not been. That's something that I've not heard very much on it. Like I said, I had a very long conversation with AAA last week with their head of government affairs regarding the pilot stuff. They're trying to come up with some alternate means without touching the requirements, either the age on the upper end or the 1500 hour, just because they keep running into a brick wall for all intents and purposes because of the New York delegation. And Schumer has essentially decided that's the hill he wants to defend for the aviation world for whatever reason. So we're trying to explore to see if there's any appetite amongst several markets. You guys are one of them that have some, Democratic senators that tend to skew more towards the middle than towards the Schumer end of things on some stuff. So we are exploring some conversations with the Michigan folks, with some clients in Michigan, some clients in Minnesota, Arizona, and you guys to see if there's any appetite at a federal level on that, essentially on the top end with the pilot thing or adjusting for the regional world, the ATP requirements on a short-term basis, because essentially we're just trying to find a Band-Aid over the next couple of years.
Okay. Final question I have. Does the Frontier, is it Sprint or Spirit?
Spirit.
Frontier Spirit merger, does that mean anything to us or anything? What does that really mean?
Yeah, no, I think that could be honestly a good thing for markets like Roswell in the probably not the short term, but the medium term. Over the next probably 2 to 3 years, as if the merger happens and if they can start integrating things quickly, What happens is you've got two different philosophies right now in the ultra low cost carrier world. Spirit has a tendency to be, and they're the biggest one by far, with about 150 airplanes and a lot of growth on their horizon. They tend to run a lot of big city to big city, daily, multiple times a day service. Frontier has a little bit different mentality. They're smaller than Spirit, but they have a tendency to run about 2/3 of the routes in their system are less than daily. So they'll run 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, but they don't necessarily have to run 7 days a week, which is, interesting in the fact that Spirit actually has some smaller airplanes. They have a handful, and they'll end up having about 70 of them, 150-seat airplanes, whereas Frontier is predominantly 230-seat airplanes. So it actually marries two situations which could help a market like a Frontier, a market like a Roswell, into some smaller airplanes coming into Frontier, and in theory, a model that allows less than daily to happen. And so as they merge, as they have their big breadth in markets like Vegas and markets like Dallas, markets like Phoenix or Orlando, it enables an opportunity like a Roswell to potentially get into this, because all of a sudden you could see a new Frontier Spirit, for lack of a better term, because we don't know what they're going to be called, to operate, a couple days a week to a Vegas, or a couple days a week to a Chicago or a Dallas or an Orlando or something else, because Frontier probably was going to be a stretch for us. Spirit would have been a stretch for us. But all of a sudden, when they get such big mass and such big operations across the board, all of a sudden they become a little bit more likely to be able to branch into a smaller market like a Roswell. And so, long term, over the next 2 or 3 years, I think you're going to start seeing that combined entity being able to grow into a smaller markets like a Roswell that separate they never would have been able to. So I think this is a good thing long term, because it gets a very, very large ultra low cost carrier that can compete better with everybody else.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Nope. Thank you, Jeff. I know you got to get going and catch your airplane. I appreciate all the information. Be safe.
Yeah. And Scott, we'll be in touch. I'm sure I'll talk to you, Mayor, too, as we prep for the conference over the next month or so, getting things arranged for what meetings, as well as setting up the presentations and stuff like that. So look forward to talking to you guys then. And again, I didn't want to be completely doom and gloom. Again, it's definitely not complete doom and gloom. The airlines have a lot of upside, positive expectations with the demand environment and what's going on. It's just right now definitely concerns on the pilot piece and where that actually goes and where we bottom out there. So hopefully we'll have some better answers here over the next couple of months there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Let the record reflect.
Bye.
Dr. Powell won't be joining us.
Okay. Go ahead. Did you leave? Okay, good. Next
Sorry
slide.
about that.
Got nobody operating the slides? Okay. So operations, I'll make this short and sweet. You can look at the numbers and see that basically we're running about the same for January as we normally do. So if you remember back to January 20, we really hadn't started COVID at that point. The numbers dropped off steeply after that, but we're pretty much back on track. I mean, a little bit lower than January 20, both 21 and 22, both are. But in general, we're in the ballpark of what we would normally do in January. The bad news is the Navy let us know about a month ago they weren't coming in January. Obviously, they're not here. You'd be hearing them now. And the issue for them was that Sinatra did not approve their debt budget for the year. So there are no debts planned at all for Roswell for 2022. Starting on February 20th and staying through March 5th, U.S. Air Force from Fairchild in Spokane will be bringing 6 KC-130s and doing one of their yearly trainings they normally do. They usually it's late spring, so we could maybe see another one later in May, and then in September is what they normally do. But this one's kind of out of pocket seasonally for them. but they'll be here for a little while to do what the training they normally do. Next slide. And revenues. For January, float fees are way up. That is most likely due to all the hard work that AirSail is doing to get the United birds out of here. We're seeing them fly out quite a bit. So we're up quite a bit. Landing fees running about typical. Parking fees, I don't have the American numbers, but they're typically in the 60, 70 range. We're in the process of changing over some of our financial software, so I didn't have that available. And Lisa had not given me the report before she went out to training this week.
So we're estimating somewhere around 140.
I think that's where we are once we get it.
140, 150.
Yeah, about where we've been running.
Okay.
So I don't expect a major change on that. It could be a little bit lower as we see these Uniteds leaving, but we've also had some other arrivals come in. We've had the orange and white ones. I forget the livery on them, but they're from United. And then we've had Alitalia come in because they went out of business. So we've had a number of those airplanes come in. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did read that.
They closed up shop and we've got a few of their 777s and a couple of Airbuses. Next slide. Projects, Taxiway Alpha and Juliet. I wish I had a better report on them. That project is going along. It was supposed to be done by now. But constructors continues to have trouble with their asphalt mix. They had another test today that did not pass. So we were hoping to be done by the end of the month. Man, I can't promise that now. But otherwise, they went really good for a long time, and now it's more or less at a standstill until they get a good test on the asphalt.
So is that where we got the asphalt for building 100?
Yes. Those are test strips.
Why don't you share that with them?
So part of that process is they do testing that they basically take a mason jar or whatever, they take a sample, they test it. And then when they get that positive test, a pass on that, they go and actually lay some on the ground to do a test strip. So their first test strip that they did was actually on Taxiway Alpha, because the idea is if it comes out good, you leave it there. And that's permanent asphalt. You don't have to take it up. It didn't come out good. So they had to take that back up. But once you had one like that, do you really want to take the chance on having to take it up over and over again on your job site? So they asked me, is there a place we can just throw some asphalt out? And so, the answer is, well, sure. What do you need? Well, they need good, hard, solid ground and flat as possible. So we put it south of building 100. There's a triangular piece of land out there that some buildings from the Air Force have been torn down over a long time ago. And there's a lot of gravel and it's very hard ground and really very flat. So we put it right in that area south of building 100. And they've had to do 2 test strips in there so far. They'll be doing a 3rd one in that same area. So we get an area that basically is a parking lot for all practical purposes out of that.
How big are they?
So kind of a pretty big. Each test is 100 tons of asphalt. So about 200 by 200-ish. So yeah, pretty respectable. I mean, I hate to say it's kind of a windfall for us, and it's not good for constructors as they go through the project and that doesn't work out for them, but it's kind of a windfall for us. I mean, so,
Gotta test it somewhere.
that's it. They got to test it somewhere. It saves them money because they don't have to take it back up. They can lay it down. If they go out there with the grader and make it perfectly flat, and then they lay it down and don't have to take it back up again, and it passes or fails based on the course. So, any other questions on that? We'll move on to the next one.
What could it be used for in the future?
I believe it's probably strong enough to park vehicles on, and certainly strong enough to put all kinds of airplane parts on if you fenced it in, that kind of thing. But it'll be something we don't have to mow, and it's more useful as asphalt than as dirt. So that's really what we were looking for, is something that we
can always go out there by the tower where they're parking out there where that old asphalt is and start covering that back up.
We could do something like that if we run out of space out here.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We were looking for something that would be easy for them to access and to do, but we've got a couple of other spots if we have to keep moving. I just basically gave them that whole triangle, said do what you want. And so that's what they've been doing, is laying it down there.
It looks nice, actually.
Thank you. Next. Runway 35 wind cone relocation. If you remember, that was a write-up on our last FAA inspection that it was 3 feet too close to the runway. And so we have to move it. We've gone through the bid process on that. We opened bids on Tuesday, and we got one bid from Bixby Electric for a little bit over $23,000. I've got the award letter. We'll be getting that signed and getting that issued and getting that going. My goal is to get that relocation done while the runway is still closed for the Alpha Juliet project, so it'll make it simple. So that should turn over very quickly.
I forwarded you an email or text about a problem with a flight being not able to land. You want to share with them?
Sure. That's actually not a new problem, but it does occasionally happen. And he forwarded me a text. There was two of them, actually, one on one day, and then about 2 or 3 days later, it happened again. So I don't understand exactly why. It's probably a pilot's call, but why it happens on some flights and not others, because that same flight that the Phoenix flight was not able to land, the Dallas flight did, just 30 minutes apart. So I suspect it's a pilot's call, but the problem is the automated weather equipment, which belongs to the FAA and is serviced by the National Weather Service. The wind indicator had failed, and so there was no wind reading in the weather sequence. So the pilot of the Phoenix flight says, well, I can't land if I don't have a complete weather sequence. So he went around
Because
with El Paso
tower was closed.
because the tower was closed, and they can't call up the tower and say, hey, what's the wind? So they have no source of official wind. That's why I say I don't understand the difference between the two. Dallas lands and Phoenix doesn't, but so there must be some pilot discretion involved. But a couple of nights later, the same thing happened on the Phoenix flight. Probably the same pilot is my guess. So if that happens, that's the explanation. I've seen that many times before over the 20 some odd years that I've been on this airport, that we've seen the flights have to divert to somewhere because they couldn't get wind or they couldn't get ceiling or something of that nature. Next. Demolition, something we're trying to work a little harder on, because the idea, of course, is to make this air center not look like a closed Air Force base. So the most recent one, next slide, is these tanks. The three on the left were the two out on Hobson. So the same thing, left picture there. Now they're gone. The right picture was the other one that was the TMC tank over by building 1081, also gone. So you see a lot more blue in those pictures. So that's progress that we made. If Larry Connolly was here, if he's listening, he'd be giving us props for that. So he really wanted those tanks on Hobson gone, but they are gone now. There's still a little bit of metal left up there on the ground that they're cleaning up. Basically, there'll be nothing left of that but the foundation on all of those.
Is there a requirement to do an ESA as a result?
There will be at some point, but not on this because we didn't disturb any ground.
Is there still piping involved, above ground piping on the tanks or on the left?
Yeah, my understanding is there wasn't at this point.
There was no piping?
There was piping, and you're right, it was over on the left, but my understanding is there was no ESA on that, or EAS on that yet. There will be at some point. Next.
Okay, before you go on,
Okay.
do you want to talk about, or can you, or maybe one can, about the Hobson Road upgrade that was approved on a council meeting?
I was trying to remember the details on that. So we're going to widen it. It was the one we've been talking about for a while,
Yeah,
right? So
But
widen
it doesn't take 285 interchange.
Correct.
It goes basically from Earl Cummings
To
to
Main.
Wyo Road. Oh, does it all the way?
I was thinking it was all the way to Maine, but
Okay.
I don't remember.
Main to Wyo Road.
Okay.
And that basic, so you put a shoulder, there's gonna be a shoulder and basically an upgrade. And that's the city's streets department doing it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have.
I didn't remember the details, but
But look at that picture, made me think of it, because that's
Yeah.
right there, that,
and the intent is to be wider.
yeah, it's gonna have a shoulder, doesn't have a shoulder now.
Right.
And am I forgetting anything else?
No, it's just, I think the principal thing was just resurfacing and providing shoulders for.
And
Yeah.
it might be widened a little bit, but it's not like 4-lane or anything like that.
And I think the
Did I miss
intent,
anything? Okay,
I think the intent that we've been talking about is to eventually get it to the point where it serves as an alternate entrance to the airport rather than going down Main through the middle of the old base. It already is, but if people are coming that way, especially those coming from out of town, Carlsbad and Artesia, that's what they see. They see that old country road. And so we want it to look better. We want it to be wider, more usable, and be that. Basically, if we get it like Earl Cummings, that would be great. But maybe that's the long-term vision.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. So next project, set hanger update. Next slide, please. So where we are right now is a sense site work. We're doing the demolition work on the site. We can go to the next slide. We have contracted with Constructors Inc. through a CES contract, and they've been out there for a little bit over a week now. They've got all of the asphalt gone, and that picture is where they're working on one of the driveways that goes up to one of the hanger slabs. So not sure of the exact sequence of taking the concrete out, but it looks like that's what they're going to do. They're going to take those driveways out, and they'll move to the 2 slabs, and then the 1 slab, back behind it over to the north. This was supposed to be a 2-week project to do this demolition. I don't think they're going to make it in 2 weeks. Today's Thursday. They've got a long way to go. So it's the second week. I don't think they'll make it. But it would not surprise me much if they don't make it in 3.5.
Are they encountering more concrete?
I was going to mention that. This driveway is 24 inches thick.
Oh my golly.
I mean, there's these huge blocks out there they're turning up. I didn't think it would be anything like that. I mean, you think 12 inches or so is about what you need on a ramp.
But isn't that the old hangar bays there, concrete too?
Yeah.
I wonder if they just poured over the top of, and that's why it's so thick.
Don't know. But I just saw them pulling out solid blocks that were, 24 by 24 as they break them up and going, man, what a trot line fishing weight, I mean, that's just huge. And so I expect that probably what they'll run into on the slabs is the same type of thing. I don't know that the floor itself will be that thick, but I bet those footings are pretty thick. They're probably 3 or 4 feet. But we kind of expected that. I don't think we expected this. But so it slowed them down a bit. But they're making good progress. It looks good. Looks like a construction site. Next slide, please. So the other piece that we're working on now is the realignment of the water service over there to account for ascent. Right now, you can kind of see it. The picture's not great, but you can see the darker blue line is the new line. The other black dashed lines are what's either going to be taken out or abandoned in place. They're currently 8 inches. That blue line is all 14 inches. You can see it going into the parking lot for Dean Baldwin and then connecting in the street over on Enterprise Street. And then it goes under the taxiway out to the airplane storage area. The reason for that is there's fire hydrants around that area out in the center field. And it's fed right now by the 8-inch line coming around the northwest side of where the ascent site is. And it's not enough. So going under that taxiway and connecting to that 14-inch line will provide a lot better flow for those fire hydrants that are out there on the field, and also provide the water that ascent needs on their site.
Are they going to bore that or dig it up?
I don't know yet. Yes is the answer.
Yes.
Next slide. So the particulars of that right now is that there's an RFQ that went out on February 11th and went out to 4 contractors through the city's on-call repair services RFP contract, and they're due back in on the 24th. And so we should have some better information then of who we pick sometime after that. Next slide. Okay, that was all I have for the I'll say run-of-the-mill projects, or the ones that are not big special projects. So Southeast Waterline project update. I think you all know what that is. That's the $2 million from the county and the state. Next slide. Going around the end of the runway over to Mystic, and then eventually down to the southeast corner.
Apex, not Mystic.
Yeah, all right. That's correct. Next slide. Where we are with that so far, they've done a invitation to bid. The bids were opened up on February 8th, and there were 5 bidders. White Cloud Pipeline was the lowest bidder at 1.5 million. The budget for that was 2. So we came in under budget, and the award will go before infrastructure on the 28th and full city council on March 10th. Questions? Okay. Next. MRO Americas. That would be Minister Mike.
I'm going to defer to Scott because we talked about that, and I think you had a meeting internally in the city.
So I wasn't there because I was out on COVID jail at that point, but Mike, that was the meeting with you guys that Steve had. That's what I was thinking of. But we did have a meeting with Joe, myself, and Steve Christopher, and Juan was there. And so the idea was to kind of take a hard look at, what we're doing, what we're spending, what we're getting out of it. One of the first questions questions or statements Joe made was, so what came out of last year? Well, we got 1 visit last year. We wound up with nobody really committing to anything. So of course, that's going to naturally bring up the question is it worth what we're doing? And then the other question is, are we ready to do it again this year? That was really mine and Steve's biggest concern, is that we go there, we hand out a lot of brochures, we do a lot of talk, we talk the Air Center up, which is all good stuff. We want to create that buzz and that interest in these MROs and these back shops. But then the question is, are we ready when they come back? Can we go there and say, hey, we're ready for you, sign right here? And the answer really is no. We're trying to work on our foundation. We're trying to get those things ready. We have a couple of successes that we're doing now that's keeping us really busy. We want to be able to send people out there to talk about Roswell and get Roswell. I can't say get us on the map. We're already there, but get that buzz going about Roswell. So the thought was that it might not be the best thing to take on a big expense and go out there with a big display, but we do want to have a presence. So the thought was to send somebody out there to MRO, and Mike's planning to go anyway, I think. And so we're probably going to send myself or Steve Christopher, most likely Steve, to walk the floor and to visit with people that are interesting, so that we can focus a little more on the companies that we're interested in, and really not oversell ourselves. That's really been, I think, the issue that we felt like we had done before, was that we had sold things that we weren't really ready to do. And so we don't want to do that again. And that was the discussion and decision that was made in the meeting with Joe. And then I know you, Steve, and you and Matt all had a meeting as well, but that was my COVID jail time when I was exposed and I had to sit out for 5 days.
Well, we discussed it. We didn't really come up with a recommendation. And we deferred it to what does the city want to do? So how the UC will always be at that event, but that's not the point. It's that we do need to have some type of presence there.
Agreed.
The side visit that happened last year was they didn't land because of workforce. It was a workforce question. But also there was a hangar question.
Exactly.
It wasn't the resources, and
Always comes back to that.
it does. So we got to fix that inventory problem first before we can be attractive.
Oh, I agree with that, because I had a large cargo carrier contact me and basically said, hey, you need hangar space, cargo conversions, because they're falling behind with hangar space. And I said, well, Roswell can do it. I have to build them. They said, let us know what it would cost per square foot. They don't want to buy the buildings or pay for it. They want to rent them. And they'd like to do a 5-10 year maybe. And send them to Scott. I did.
Yeah.
Not Scott, I sent Steve.
Yeah, that works.
And of course, Steve came back with a 20-year deal, and they're not going to be interested in that off the bat. And he said, well, maybe we could do it for 10, because he said the city council wouldn't approve anything less than 10. And I was thinking, well, if that's the attitude.
No, it's not the attitude.
I know, but if that's the attitude, then that's going to be hard. Most of the time they'll go in for 5 and they'll be here for 15 to 20, but they don't like to commit.
Well, you'll also have a facility, whether it's 5 years or whatever.
I agree.
You'll still have a facility for.
And they would have probably committed to it Yeah, and they would have brought their own manpower and everything in. It would
All
have,
right, if y'all need help, let me know. I'm happy to visit with them.
Okay, let's see if we can salvage that.
we could.
All right.
Good. I did not tell them the exact answer. I said it's being worked on. I'll let you know. I'll probably run into them here in April and give them a call.
I think we're open to discuss anything. I mean, you know,
They're going to be needing to do in 777s, 330s, big airplanes. And everybody's saying, well, we don't want to tie our hangars up for 3 to 6 months with that. So they're looking for a place that can tie airplanes up for a while.
sure. And, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of these folks are looking for something that's existing and standing there now. They can just drag an airplane into.
Well, and I told them
They've got a little longer window of
they do.
the need, then we may be able to meet that.
Well, yeah, we're looking at 18 months, 2 years before they're ready to start the project.
Yep.
So it wasn't like they needed to do it. They probably would have signed an agreement with you, right?
Cool.
You know, if somebody would have came back with a more reasonable term. And when I said, they just wanted a base overview. They didn't want to get into a conversation. They don't want people to know their intention because it creates a lot of,
Sure.
this would create a lot of hoopla if they were to,
Always does.
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But with that said, you know, we have to have oh, you want one? Here's our agreement.
Right.
That's what needs to be in place. A rate.
And I think, you know, to a certain extent, I understand what Steve was saying. The shorter ones like that for the more expensive buildings is definitely harder to do. Because what do you do after that 5? You know, you're sort of heading on the I'll build it and they'll come, you know, scenario after the 5. So that's certainly a conversation. I think that
I think if
could
you
be
built
had.
it and rented it for a 20-year payout at that rate, if they stay 5,
Exactly.
odds are they're going to stay.
Well, and that's the thing. You don't know those things until you have the conversation.
Yeah, and they can't predict the future. They're you know,
And they may stay.
and they may stay for God knows how long.
Well, and that's why we need to, at the MRO, is we need to be prepared for stuff like that, because we're not. You know, we can't say we can, I mean, we can't talk for the city council, but we certainly have an idea of what might be possible.
That's right.
And that's the terms that we use as possibilities, but we don't have anything to give a company, prospective company saying,
Right.
this is why.
Yeah, because we're going to put the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we have to go to the city council.
We've got to do a little more homework.
Yeah.
And
They would approve for.
And that's kind of where I was going, you know, with the reason for not really going all out at the MRO is that we're really not ready for a big avalanche of folks to come in.
Because I think if you do.
We've got enough to do right now, and there's going to be more coming, even if we don't have a presence at MRO at all. So, but not that I think we should. But the Mike's going to be there, but we should definitely have enough presence there that we can make our case. And our case should be, as Mike's saying, let's talk. You know, we can do a lot. Let's talk.
Well, that's just it. You know, we talk, but you know, that it's great to talk, but we should have something.
We should.
Look, here's what we can put up for this rent, and here's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year lease.
Yeah, and I think we're not too far off with that. I mean, you can go through some of the stuff that Joe talked about, and these are the things that we've been talking about as well for quite a while. So, you know, that stuff's contained in here of how we can do a bunch of this, and it doesn't get down to the individual tenant level of what their needs are, because you can't. But
I'd still like to have details on this, because I think one of the fundamental issue is where does the funds come to build?
That's something like, that's what I'm saying. That's maybe where you have to put something together with the city council and say, look, here,
The
if
state
this happens, then this is already in place.
The state has
Yep.
deep pockets. So at some point, the pitch goes up to Santa Fe saying, look, this is something right now
agree.
that would happen now. We're talking 18 months from now, not 18 years from now, 18 months from now. Go ahead. And one of my thoughts too is that, heck, we'll let the state, see, I threw this out to the State Investment Council. State Investment Council could own it.
Mm-hmm.
They own it, and we would be the leasing agency.
Landlord or, management company.
So we have hangars out there that are 7 decades old, 8 decades old, that are producing revenue. So the return on investment doesn't have to be the 20-year that commercial outfits want to have. So if it's a 40-year return on investment, that means that this long-term, we would have another 40 years of revenue going into the state coffers. And that assumes you don't stair step up the rates per square foot. I mean, the reality is MROs don't want to pay $15 a square foot. I get that. I understand that. But we can have something that we start, I'm pulling a number out of the air, 7.
And you can probably get them all day long at that.
And then next year, 705, or the next year, 710. But, you know, and then we build it up.
Yeah, but we need to have that piece of paper. Here it is.
I
You can
know.
look at it and say, I'll take this option, A.
And we have that to a certain extent. We've got some pro forma that we worked on before with the Armstrong study, and we can update those numbers and
And we do have that large hangar project. That study was May of 19,
and it's
which really is what precipitated this Ascent hangar project. Because that hangar study and the RFI that went out, we didn't have any nibbles then, but Blythe went ahead and cold called Curio in March 2 years ago. That produced the,
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that his company has the wherewithal to be able to put some investment into it. And that's not the norm. That's the exception.
but here's the thing too, I will say about this for us. We're learning a lot with this project.
we are.
We're gonna be able to do, it's like, you know, picking on Air Sale. If Air Sale decides they want something over in their neck of the woods, hopefully we've learned enough from the Ascent project to do this in a quicker, cleaner, cheaper way.
Yeah, well, it should already be, oh, you want that? They just, here's the deal. And you call up Rob or whoever your hangar people are and say, you know, you already have your environmental studies done on the sites. Here's the sites that are available. All that pre-planning's done. And it's basically, you want it, here it is. We'll have it in 6 to 8 months or whatever it takes.
Getting a little philosophical here, but one of the challenges too is I think the staff at the Air Center needs to have a Kevin Dillon, a project manager, because you're
Agreed.
busy, Scott's busy, Jan is busy, but because we're talking some big, if we do what you're talking about, that's going to mean major construction stuff and staying on top.
Still short staffed there?
Mhm.
Are you still short staffed?
We are not, so it depends on the definition, you know, to quote Mr. Clinton. But we don't have enough is really the short answer. We have all the positions in the management office side filled, but there's not enough. The mayor's right. That position is missing right now. Steve Christopher and I sort of split that, but it's mostly Steve.
I kind of thought that's what Steve was.
And I'm pushing for an additional position.
Yes.
Because
And
I think they need that to do this.
They do.
And when we draw out all the grapes in the organizational chart, that
Joe's-
position's
I mean,
in there.
Joe hears what I'm saying. Joe hears them. I mean, the budget's going to be built for FY23 starting in a few weeks. That, we'll see. We can kick it around, but I think that's a legitimate objective, is to try and have the major, go ahead.
Didn't you contact the State Investment Council? Did they answer you?
Yep,
with the
I can show it
response?
to you. I got it in my office.
Is it not favorable?
No, it's like kind of a lame response. I'll get you, come over there and I'll dig out the, my letter.
Maybe we need to approach it a little different. Maybe we can push it through the EDD folks.
That would be, I
I mean,
think,
from a different perspective, maybe not just from the city, but maybe we get the state involved, a different office in the state. Maybe that's
Well, I
a
think
little traction.
we have had for a little while, but I think we have some momentum going with the state that we should not ignore. And I don't think we are, but, you know, just continue to push that and get it going more in ways that, like you're saying, you know, things that we haven't really touched just yet.
Yeah. And it's like DOT, state DOT, get them involved and have them advocate as well. Maybe there's ways we can pull some levers and
You would
if they
think.
think of it differently.
it's kind of a complicated response. Well, we don't do it that way. Is what it boiled down to. And I'm like, and I didn't push harder on it because other things started opening up. And
Well, as we continue to talk about increasing the inventory, we're going to find ways to generate that revenue.
yeah, that's going to be the challenge. I mean, the traditional investment, expecting a return on investment of like 20 years, it's just it's going to price those hangars above what the companies are going to be comfortable paying. But then if we could do this, then we could turn around and do the 5-year lease, because we know
Exactly.
that it's.
Yeah, but like, Randy decides that, hey man, we need to expand. We're going to do paint and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And we need more space. He should be able to come to you or say, look, this is what we want to do. I need a building. Whether it's a warehouse on outside the fence or it's inside the fence, whether it's a hangar or it's to store parts or to put a shop in, all that should be pre-priced, pre-planned, and it just adjusts by, the consumer price index.
Yeah, and I think
versus that.
I think that's where we want to
It's
go.
literally, it should be a plug and play deal.
Yeah,
You want it?
I think that is where we want to go.
I'm sure you could go to Victorville or other airports and Mojave and
But
go,
I have electricity.
huh?
I have electricity.
You have electricity?
They have
Yeah, well, okay. Let's not say Victorville. Let's say,
Marana, I have water.
well, they don't need water for airplanes. They
But the people need to have it to drink.
bring it in by the case.
Okay.
But okay. Moses Lake, they got it all.
Yeah, but it snows up there.
Doesn't matter. They can show, you're inside a hangar that they have built.
Yeah, but you got to be able to taxi out to the runway.
That's a minor problem.
Hey, I'm not the mayor of Moses Lake, Marana.
I know, but what I'm saying is that a lot of these places, they have that type of format. Oh, we can build you. Here's a picture of our ground. Would you like a hangar right here?
Sure.
Here's what it would cost.
I
And we
understand.
can start construction, sign right there, and we'll let you know.
Okay, we're getting a little philosophical. We probably should try and.
Well, I agree, but it's just, we can never answer the question when somebody says, I'm interested. What's it cost?
Okay. Well,
Heck.
agenda items for the March meeting. I see all these items right here. Anything we want to add?
When would you like to resume the strategic planning
Let's do it
discussion?
March.
Okay.
I think that's, you and Commissioner Call, we're going to caucus with some people and let's get back on track with that.
Okay.
Let's do that. Yep. Okay. Anything else? Feed Scott if you come up with something you want to put on there, please.
That's got to put in timeout.
From having actual COVID to getting exposed to it, yeah, I agree.
So,
Hopefully nothing like that again anytime soon.
so you guys got a copy of the city manager's presentation from Tuesday night, the marathon. 51 slides. He did it in an hour and a
The
half.
paper said 80 minutes. I counted 90, but we could count 90 minutes.
I saw it. I was 7:30 by my watch.
I had a question about this.
Yeah.
It was 90 minutes.
Yeah. it was 90. I had 90 minutes. Yeah,
How about mine? I liked mine. Mine was shorter,
significantly shorter.
significantly shorter. Yeah, I know. Anyway,
Hey, Scott,
Mhm.
what's the FAA policy that regarding the establishment of airport rates and changes? What section is that?
It's, like a lot of things,
Airspace.
FAA isn't going to tell you got to charge $7 a square foot. I'm
Right.
going to do that. But for non-aeronautical, it has to be for market.
I understand that. I just was curious. Is it in 139? Is it in an air circular? What is it?
It's in that big old number that was in here. And
What's in there? The numbers in there?
it was, the numbers are not, there's a compliance manual, it's 5,000 something or other, but Joe
Okay.
mentioned it, but it's in there.
It's in there.
But it's in the compliance manual and I'm sure there's plenty of other that comes out of the FARs and you could probably go back all the way to where that is. But honestly, the compliance manual is the FAA's interpretation of the FARs. That's the point.
Right.
So, but that's where it comes from. And so you're looking at fair market value for non-aeronautical and they want a little more wiggle room on the aeronautical side. So they changed that term to fair and reasonable, which still should be close to what's market for airports around.
No, I just was curious.
Hey, going back to March, how about we move back down to the terminal? What do you guys think?
I'll go wherever, you know.
No matter.
Go to Lincoln.
I think it would work better.
If they don't change,
The majority of folks are at the terminal. We must be, and then the air center, we must go to the air center.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
if they
agree.
don't change the date, the TSA's lifting the mask thing on March 18th and everything else that we hear from CDC, they're talking about doing away with masks. So it's probably as good a time.
Just lifted it today.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay, I knew she's going to.
Who did?
The governor
Let's the mask mandate.
lifted the mask ban.
So I think we're,
At her press conference at 1.
Oh,
I think we're in pretty good shape with that sort of thing. I mean, we would be a day off if they stick to the
So I'm
18th.
going to take that sign down.
So would that include on the airplane as well?
I don't know yet.
Well, if you noticed,
I suspect they'll come out with some guidance shortly before that.
the airlines,
Probably will undo it. My guess is it'll undo it in the terminals if they undo anything, and not on the airplane. I think they'll hold the airplane out to the last.
That makes a lot of sense.
To undo it on the airplane or not?
To do it one way and not the other way.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to rationale.
So the
airlines announcements now,
at our
notice
March meeting, since we'll have the air center.
it's federal law, you know, well, everybody would say, okay, where's the law? There's no law. So now it's airline policy.
Okay.
At the March meeting, since we'll have the air center, can we maybe take a mini tour of the new baggage piece that you guys have redone?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we can do
I
that.
think that'd be.
it's a great idea.
Can we send Mike through it?
Yeah, you can send me through it. I'm sure I'll fit because I'm not tall like this guy. It would be nice to see that. And the second thing, sir, is the parking lot. What is the plan on the?
Oh, yeah. Put down there the parking lot project.
Mm-hmm.
That's the map money
Right.
parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, let's get on that. Because there's supposed to be a building demo there too. Let's, you do have the demo stuff, but we got a bunch of other things that we're looking at.
Yeah, there's a couple of other buildings. 73, which is where Air Sales tear down pad was, is on the demo list. And then we've got a couple of other smaller buildings that need to go. There's one old utility building. I don't know if it was a electrical facility or it's empty now, but it's a brick building right on the corner by Hangar 84. And so that one's going to go as well. The bank building's going to go. Somebody actually broke into it, I guess, yesterday. The window was broken this morning.
Bill Bank building?
Yeah, I wish they'd stolen the piano. We wouldn't have to deal with that, but they left it. They just broke the window.
Why is there a piano in there?
It was a church at one point,
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
and they left it, and it's been there ever since.
Heritage Credit Union.
I just was curious why a bank would have a piano in it.
And would,
Somebody,
school or somebody?
sure, absolutely. I don't know if it's any good,
I
but
don't know, but
it looks horrible. But
just cart away and have it free, right?
Yep. you bet. You tune it, you can have it.
All right, let's go around. Okay, reports, announcements, blah, 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 public participation. Randy, anything?
Yeah, Scott, if you could.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble now. You're being served.
Really. I've asked Steve Christopher, evidently there's an operating agreement between
Okay.
Phil and Ross. I haven't seen that.
Okay, I will follow that up.
Here, so we're just seeing if we can get a copy of that.
Okay.
Great.
I will follow that up.
Cool.
Larry Conley is here.
Oh, hey, Larry.
How are you?
Good.
Scott?
How are you?
Good.
Did you hear us talking about you?
I did. And I'm looking forward to being at your next meeting, and I probably will kiss Scott Sark and Mr. Christopher for getting rid of those 3 ugly tanks.
You better brush your teeth first.
Okay, I'll bring my Lavores too. Other than
You're
that,
scaring me, Larry.
we're gonna have Leprino give us a party out there. They always used to complain about those tanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Counselor Stubbs?
Not I, thank you.
All right. So we got some things to work on for next month. I've got 2:34. How about we adjourn? You gonna come over, Mike?
Yeah.
It's easier if I pull it up on my.
That's fine.